Hi, it's a beautiful sunny day today, and I'm continuing with my lattice pattern, and all of the techniques I'm using are ravenstail techniques. And so I'm going to start a row, and I'll deal with the braids, and I'm actually using a ravenstail technique vertical braid, and I'm also using a nahin vertical braided twine down. So I'll just keep weaving. So on my left side here, I'm going to do a lark's head, and that will bring a balance to the fringe that happens with the weavers that end up on the right side. So you come over here, and before you start a row, you're going to put a lark's head in there. So always you're wrapping around the side cord and you're pairing them. You'll never break those side cords. And so we have the three little blue warps, and now I come to the black border. So with the black border, I get my black thread and divide it in half. Make the tails come together. And then I grab those blue weavers and I wrap the, can you see that? I wrap them around the blue, and then I want the black to be in the front, so I'm going to push both blues to the back, and then I'm going to take the top black and the top blue, and I'm going to send the blue to the back, and also one more stitch. Okay, now I'll take the time to slip knot. These long lengths of yarn can tangle and be not manageable unless you were to slip knot them. So again, the Ravenstail book and the Chilkat book, I think they both explain how to do the slip knot. I don't know if you can really see it, but I start out at the end of the yarn, and about a hand's length, I'm going to circle around my finger and then swing it through, and then I'm going to slide it to the edge, and then so I make a loop, and then I swing and bring my finger through that loop. And okay, so I have these that I'm going to be weaving with, and the other two, the other black and the other blue, are going to stay behind. So I want a solid black border here, and I bring the black forward. Now, these braids don't have to be turned. I see that I only went by here twice, and really I can get away with having weaving four there. And here I went over 4 times, so now this is over 6. a series of 2 6 times. So I'm coming close to these braids, and you can see that they've gone I've gone across here quite a lot without working these braids, and so it's time to work the braids. So I take all 3 of them, and I take the top one left and right to its partners, and that is a Naheen braid, vertical braid, top, left, right. And then you drop that tail. So pick up my weavers, and I finish the last 2 enclosed, and I move over to the black. Now, like I said, whenever there is a border such as this, where it's always going to have a consistent width, I'll go over 4 one row, but the next row I'll go over 2 over 2, and that keeps this from bunching. So I'll go over 2 over 2, and I see that the pattern has this blunted arrow now starting to go off back to the left. So I will be I'll only include 2 blues, then 4, then over 4 black, and over 4 black, and then over 4 blue, and then over 2 blue. Okay, and then I'm going to go 2 and 2, and I'm going to look at the graph now. So the previous row was over 4 black, over 4 black. Well, that's the start, but the rhythm was over 2 blue, over 4 black, over 2 blue, over 4 black. So I find that on my pattern and see what the next row should be. The next row is over 2 black, over 4 black, and then over 3 blue, and over 3 black, over 3 blue, over 3 black, and that's my rhythm, or my pattern, the rhythm of my pattern. And then, so it's important how you start these. So I see that starts with over 2 black and over 4 black. So I'm going to go and bring the black forward and close 2, then bring the black forward again and enclose 4, and then over 4 blue, over 4 blue, over 4 blue. Okay, so I started that. Now I don't want to get too far ahead and leave these behind. So I go back, and they had just been laying there. I just dropped them, didn't pay any attention to them. Now I need to bring that blue behind 2 warps and forward. And again, I want to get these lengths manageable by doing a few slip knots. So yesterday I was talking about Caamano, Juan Josito Caamano in 1792, who came up along the coast and came to northern Haida Gwaii, where I'm at, just up 4 hours up the way to about Langara. And he had first gone to Bucareli Bay up near the Cloac Craig area. And he saw Haidas there, traded with Haidas there, and Caamano even collected a robe there that is one of the first-sided ravenstail robes. Now, there aren't that many first-sided ravenstail robes. There are two first-sided robes in the collection at the museum there in Leningrad, Russia. And then I believe an early Russian army officer saw one up near Sitka and described it. Okay, so I still don't have to do anything with these braids, so I'm not going to. And I did 6 here. So after I do 6 over 2, I know that now it's going in. So I'll be going 4 over 2. And first I know I'm going to enclose I'm going to enclose 4 warps in the blue. And then I'm going to do 4 over 2. So the first-sided robes, if you remember, he said that one looked like, on one side it looked just like a hide, and on the other side he talked about the patterns and that there was a color that he thought looked like purple, but we think it might just be a color that had started out being black, but then it oxidized or into a rich, deep brown red, because purple's not a traditional color. Oh, okay. So here I'm getting to talking where I probably shouldn't be, especially when we're dealing with these 2-color geometric patterns. It's important to be attentive. So this is going this way. So I don't know if you can really see it, if I can get a close up. But these patterns move over in increments of 2 warps. So there was over 4 over 4 black, and I know that's what we're going to do here. So I'm only going to have the blue go over 4, and then I will do over 4 black and over 4 black. So it's moving in increments of 2 warps, the pattern is. Now I'm going to do the blue, over 4 blue, and over 4 blue. Okay. So those first-sided robes were amazing, and Cheryl Samuel, I believe, had gone to Russia, and so I'm just going to drop that. She went to Russia and she studied those robes, and she wrote about them in the Ravenstail book. So they're rare. And what you do is you hang the warp, which is thigh spun mountain goat wool. In the past, it was thigh spun mountain goat wool, and then they cut real thin strips of the sea otter, and they were probably about 1/4 of an inch thick of the hide, and then they hung the hide, which when worked and scraped and dried, it's a very white skin on that hide. So they would hang them. They wouldn't fold them over like these warps are folded over up here on the top. Well, the sea otter was, like I say, cut thin strips, and then they would tie these thin strips up here, and then the white hide would show on this side, the side that you're weaving your geometric patterns with the weft-faced weavings, and then the back would be where the fur sticks out. So when you saw the robe on the other side, it looked just like a fur coat, a fur robe, a fur cloak. So that's a really cool robe. I mean, Caamano, when he collected the robe there up in Bucareli, he was like saying that it was quite the best he'd ever seen. And when Cheryl went to study in Russia, she said the same thing, that it was robes just luxurious, and you wouldn't want any more for like being warm and being fashionable. I just want to double check because I don't want, though it's heartbreaking to make a mistake and then have to go all the way back with your geometric patterns. So I just want to double check and make sure that I'm on track with this pattern. Okay, so I was also, it also kind of fits in with the wearing two robes. I was talking to you about wearing two robes and how that was a tradition in the past. Caamano, after he came over here, he went to Bucareli Bay first, then he came over to northern Haida, and after that he actually even went over to Tsimshian country. He wasn't the first one to meet the Tsimshians. That was Colnet. So anyway, Caamano went over and to Tsimshian country near Katla after he visited the Haidas. And he said that he saw a chief, and he said the chief's name was Jamyset or something. Anyway, let me see if I can get my notes. So he surveys in the coast Tsimshian territories, and I think it's up near Katla. But this is what he says when he describes what Chief Jamyset wore. Okay? Over his shoulders, he wore a couple of cloaks. The inner one, a party-colored woolen cape, trimmed with nutria fur. And they called some people called the sea otter nutria fur. Anyway, the outer, so the woolen, there was a party-colored cape, then trimmed with nutria fur, and the outer, a bare skin edged and flounced with broad strips, seemingly of deer hide, cut to finish as fringe, and sewn with small tassels of white swan's down, making a pretty regular pattern. From the middle of these hung 4 very fine leather thongs, each about 4 inches long, with an eagle's claw at the end, which made hardly less noise than a harlequin's suite of bells. So once again, Caamano observes the two outer garments draping a chief's shoulders. So so it wasn't just the Haidas who were wearing and had the tradition of wearing two robes. So over on the mainland, they too were wearing two overcoats. I have a theory about why that might be, and it's just my theory. I don't think I've heard anybody else. Well, not too many people have ever really said too much about this old tradition of wearing two robes. But my theory is that in our culture, let's see, I don't know how this shade and sun is coming out, but anyway, here's my theory about the two robes. In our culture, we had a system, we had a hierarchy, a society where we had the people who were chiefs and chiefs' families, and then we had the common people, and then we had our, back in the day, we used to raid different villages and get slaves. It's not a very popular thing to be talking about nowadays, but there was this system, right? And so in our warfare with ourselves, even, I mean, the Haidas and the Skidegats and the lower Ungit Haidas, we really never, even though we spoke the same language, there were stories of wars between us. But anyway, and of course we had occasional wars with our neighbors. So if a chief was killed, then the opposing people, their retaliation would be an equal status person. So if a chief was killed, then the revenge would be another chief to be killed. So my theory is that there were these robes, and you wore two different robes, and the robes had messages. We know that it made a difference if you were wearing a hide robe, like say a sea otter robe. The high status people had the right to wear their robe out, the fur out. And and some people would wear the fur in, but for the high status people, it was people who were wearing their fur out. So anyway, I have this theory that if there was a battle, and if the clan saw that their people had killed a chief of the opposing people, then they knew that their chief was in danger, that they would have to have the revenge of an equally status person. So in order to buy time or to plan that you're in a better situation when you come together to battle, and you wanted to keep your chief alive, and the chief wanted to stay alive, that they would hide their status. Like our clothing was declared our status. But if within a scrimmage you needed to hide your status, then off came one robe, right? Or in the case of the fur-sided ravenstail robes, that it was reversible. So one side would tell a message, and the other side would say would symbolize something else, and so it just makes sense that you'd want to be maybe a quick change artist, and two robes would be very good at that. I'm sorry about all this shade, but thank you so much for joining me today. I will see you hopefully tomorrow.